Hi everyone, this is my run on Wild Child of the Veldt Lufenia stage, which is part of Gao's Lost Chapters. And as always, before going into the battle, I'll be giving a quick overview of the fight mechanics as well as the party setup that I used. I will also be including a timestamp in the video description, so if you are interested only in specific sections of the fight, you can use the timestamp to jump ahead. So coming to this fight, it's 3 waves, and they all have the same monster in it, which is the ancestor boss. On the first wave, it's just a single ancestor. On the second wave, it's a pair. And on the third wave, you have to deal with 3 of the ancestors. They are resistant to range, and they are immune to the attack down, defense down, speed down debuff. And in terms of the Lufenia orb in this fight, it starts when the ancestor falls below 50% health, and the orb only comes out on the second and third wave because the first wave is only a single ancestor. The orb will last until the ancestors die, but it cannot be cancelled, but can be increased when they take earth damage or counter attacks. And because of this, of course, being Gao's Lost Chapter, Gao is the best unit to deal with the Lufenia orb because he deals both earth damage and counter attacks. Plus, he also enchants earth to the entire party. So if you're bringing Gao, then the orb countdown is not an issue, and it will never go down below 10 count. If you don't have Gao, there are other options, of course. Realm with Brother Summon will also deal earth damage, and there are of course some counter attack based characters, 8 being recently re-released, and of course Cater is also another option, though they only increase the count by 1. You can also try to quickly burst them down once the orb appears. They don't have too much HP, and you can possibly kill them off before the count reaches to 0. And of course, if you have burst or summon, it helps because burst or summon also pauses the orb. Now, coming to just a quick description of the fight mechanics. The first wave, although it does not have a Lufenia orb, the first wave does have a special mechanic inside where once the ancestor on the first wave reaches red health, which I believe is below 30% health, you will get a message prompt saying that it's preparing for a massive group attack on the next turn. And this will be the Blaze Breath plus attack here, where it's very similar to the orb countdown attack. It actually removes all your buffs, including frame buffs, and removes all its own debuffs, including frame debuffs, before launching a massive AoE attack. And because it dispels all your buffs, it's very likely that this attack will kill you. And notably, as far as I can tell, Blaze Breath Plus will only be used on Wave 1. Wave 2 and Wave 3 does not have this mechanic where they will use this attack. So when you see the prompt on its next turn, the ancestor will use this attack, and you can see it preparing because it will be targeting all. So the idea is to save your hardest hitting moves during this window of time. You should have a few turns before it uses this attack, and hopefully you'll be able to quickly kill it off before it gets a turn. Alternatively, you can employ other strategies such as using your burst or summon during this window of time to buy you enough turns to kill it off. In fact, the second or third wave aren't too difficult as long as you have ways to mitigate their usual Blaze Breath attack damage. They have relatively high speed and high turn rate, but with Gao in the party, or if you have other counter attackers, it's actually very manageable on the second and third wave. So if you find it difficult to avoid Blaze Breath Plus on the first wave, you can opt to use your burst or summon mode here which will give you more than enough time to kill it off. Other strategies including delay or deleting its turns. You really only need like additional few more turns to damage it down. So if you bring in characters like Lion or delayers such as Christie's, you can potentially kill it off before it uses Blaze Breath Plus as well, which will allow you to save your summon or burst for the future waves. Having said that though, while Lion is quite useful, he's counterproductive when paired with Gao, because Gao relies on the enemies getting turns in so that he can counter attack with his landslide counter. On the second and third wave, it's pretty straightforward. As long as you have heavy DPS, you can quickly take them down. So coming to the party setup that I used, first of all, I put in Gao, and I pulled for Gao. I was actually planning to pull for Gao here. I was actually hoping to save my resources for Gladio and Lightning coming up next, but I got lucky with the previous banner of Kuja, and I managed to score Kuja's LD within about 100 tickets. So I decided to pull for Gao because I was still hoping to get Kuja's burst, and luckily I managed to get Gao's gear and got Kuja's burst along the way. So Gao is a no-brainer. He makes the Lufenia orb pretty much worthless here, and you don't have to worry about the Lufenia orb as long as you have Gao in your party. Next up, I bring in Basch, mainly to deal with the regular Blaze Breath. Basch will redirect all Blaze Breath to himself, and therefore allow the rest of your party to focus on damage. For the third party member, I decided to bring in Kuja because I managed to pull for his burst. If you don't have Kuja, you can use other strong DPS. VV is also another good option, especially when paired with Basch. He deals significant AoE damage and can quickly finish off the fight as well. Summon of choice, I decided to use Brothers here for the Earth element and for the Max Brave buff. But looking back, another great option I think would be Odin, especially if you don't bring in Basch, because Odin's 30% attack will activate very easily. However, since I brought in Basch, it's very unlikely that Kuja or Gao will be taking damage, so I opted for Brothers instead. As far as how built the party is, everyone's fully maxed out except only for Basch, where his summon boards is at 9 out of 10. At this point of the video, he hasn't yet grinded his Bahamut summon boards yet. And lastly, in terms of friend support, I'm also using a Kuja friend support. The idea is to have double Kuja at the final wave for the strong AoE damage to quickly finish off the third and final wave. With that said, let's move into the video. I'll see you there. Okay, so starting off on the first wave, the first wave is pretty straightforward for most of it, because there's no Lufenia orb on the first wave and it's only a single monster that you have to worry about. It gets tricky once the Ancestor reaches below 30% health, and so if you're finding it difficult to deal with this, one possible way is to go a bit slower on the damage on the first half of the fight, because you really don't need much to whittle down the Ancestor, but you do need to be spamming skills once the Ancestor is at red health on the first wave, so that you can kill it off before it uses Blaze Breath Plus. I just played normally on the first half, so I used Gao's LD, I used Basch LD, and I used Kuja's LD to quickly bring them up to their full buffs. And then I just proceeded to use regular attacks to bring down the Ancestor. With Kuja, I think the better way here is to save his Ultima Plus for when the Ancestor is at great health, because other than Kuja's LD, which you don't want to burn it all off so quickly, his Ultima Plus deals about 200k damage when it's just a single target, because all the HP damage is focused on one target rather than split across multiple targets. So Kuja's Ultima Plus is a great way to burst down the Ancestor when it's at red health. One other thing you can consider also is not to have Gao use his LD at all on the first wave. I don't think it's really needed. His cat scratch counter is actually enough to deal with the Ancestor in the first wave. And saving more of his LD for later waves is actually quite useful, because his LD also does a lot of damage during summon. It tends to cap out at 99,999 damage on all targets at once. So it's a great way to burst damage during the summon animation. Okay, so you can see the group text here. So its next attack is still a single attack, but the next turn after that will be Blaze Breath Plus. So I have about 4 or 5 turns to quickly kill it off. I could have used Summon. You can see that after this attack my Summon is fully charged, and of course I also have Kuja's Burst. But since the Ancestor is low enough, I tried to hopefully kill it off before it gets to use Blaze Breath Plus. I saw that Kuja has 2 turns, so I decided to just spam his Ultima Plus, even though I'm running a bit low on Ultima Plus counts. I tried using Gao's AA here to hopefully get another turn where the Ancestor will regenerate Brave, but unfortunately didn't happen. And the Ancestor has 5% health, so I was just crossing my fingers hoping that Ultima Plus is enough. And here it is just nice enough to kill it off, so I get to save my summon and burst animation for later waves. Okay, so once you made it past the first wave, the second and third wave aren't too difficult because Gao will negate the Lufenia orb, and you just need to have some way to mitigate the frequent Blaze Breath attack, which is just a regular Brave and HP attack. So having Basch in the party will remove that risk as well. So it is pretty straightforward here. So right here is an example of getting hit by Blaze Breath, and Basch's ability just redirects it onto himself. On the second and third wave, the Ancestor will also use an attack called Pep, as you can see here, which batteries themselves to max Brave, which is more than 50,000 Brave, and after that they will be preparing for an attack. You can get around this by taunting them onto Basch, because with Basch Indomitable LD buff up, he really can't die even if he takes the full attack. Another way of course is to just break them at the 50k Brave. So if you have strong Brave Shavers such as Kuja or Vivi, 50,000 Brave isn't an issue at all. Or you can use instant break attacks from characters such as Strago or Gabrant. I decided to use Kuja's second LD here because his first LD buff is about to expire. Lufenia Orb is up and they've used Pep. And you can see Ancestor A is about to hit all with Blaze Breath attack with 50,000 Brave, which normally is very dangerous. But with Basch in the party, it's actually not very dangerous at all. I took quite a lot of damage because I didn't break it. But even with 50,000 Brave, Blaze Breath attack, it will only bring Basch down to 50% health due to the mechanics of his Indomitable buff. Okay, the third wave plays very much similar to the second wave. You only have to deal with 3 ancestors rather than 2, but otherwise the strategy of the fight is very much similar to wave 2. I did manage to save both my friends' unit, my summon as well as Kuja's burst on the third wave, so I decided to go all out here. I took a risk, I took away Basch, which would make me open to Blaze Breath attack, but I plan to summon very soon anyway, so with double Kuja inside summon, I deals a lot of damage. Right before summon, I popped my Kuja's burst. Like you might be wondering why I use his AA inside his burst, and that's essentially because it's a free AA use for Kuja, and I did that to replenish one skill use of his Ultima Plus because I have spammed it completely on the first wave. With Kuja's burst is either you use AA or use his HP+++ anyway in one of the 6 attacks. So I find getting free skill out of Ring Holy and Ultima Plus is way better than just using a regular HP attack. Okay, so the ancestors are about to get their turn, so I decided to prolong my turns by using summon right after Kuja's burst has ended, and I'm spamming my hardest hitting AoE attacks here, including all of Gal's LD. By the time summon's over, the ancestors will be nearly dead anyway, so you don't need to conserve Gal's LD use for much longer. And with the support Kuja, it's best to use EX 3 of his LD, and then I finish it off with another EX. And of course with my own Kuja, it's between his remaining LD use as well as his EX ability. So all doing massive AoE damage, and you can see it quickly adds up on the ancestors. They haven't gotten their first turn and they are already below 50% health. So unfortunately, the support Kuja is still in the field, and the ancestors are about to get a turn. So I do have to eat a few Blaze Breath, but it isn't so bad. You can see that it does a little bit of damage, and Gao can heal right after that. Anyway. If you've taken quite a bit of damage from the Blaze Breath attack, you can use Gao's Life Shaver attack. It is a party-wide heal. Looking back at this, I think it's actually better to use Basch's S2 to heal himself rather than his LD, so that I can actually end the fight with Basch at full HP, but it doesn't really matter that much. So here using Gao's Life Shaver heals Basch almost to full health. Anyway, that's it. So looking back at this, long story short, the toughest part of the fight is actually near the end of the first wave. So if you're finding it difficult to deal with Blaze Breath Plus, feel free to use your summon or burst. Until then, I hope you enjoyed the video. Do leave a like, comment or subscribe, and I'll see you in the next Lufenia fight. Bye bye.